Yes, all the files that you receive from Dr. Ibar, that's everything I've given out. I definitely am. Absolutely. Yes, I'm gonna wait. I think we're still waiting on a few people. Wait till everybody gets here. Yeah, I'm gonna start recording and I'll definitely share my screen. Yeah, definitely. Wait just a few. It is, we're at 3:31. All right. Does this look like everybody that's in the, I don't remember the name of the class, Dr. Dakar's class?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I have a hard copy of the lab. We'll leave this for a few minutes. If you would. Thank you. I wasn't sure. I don't live in the ED's world. So I'm glad you.
Sorry? Well, 212 should be second floor. So today I will just say once I get here. So I will go through the classes.
Yeah, and one thing you'll see, I mean, I try to do this for every class I have. Like I've got like step by step. Click here, do this. So it should be. I figure I can follow. Okay. You're really? Yes. Yes, this is the PhD seminar on endogeneity, caloregression. Okay.
I didn't know that's right because I was like, I didn't know where to go.
I thought we were in the sandbox.
Download it so you have to pay for it. I'm sensitive. And I hope they will deliver it as soon as
Let me go walk up there.
Hi, how are you?
Did you read the big one? I'm so sorry, I'm so baby.
I can't find anything from my own seconds. Reading a paper, I didn't find it soon.
Yeah, fine, fine.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to.
Oh.
That's what I think.
But this means it's there. So there's no platform. Oh, okay.
You lied to me.
So 2010,
I was like, you know I've only ever been here once in 6 years. Good to see you.
See you, how are you?
Good, I just came from the TED Talk at
Oh, yeah, I heard it was a TED Talk, yeah. How are you doing?
Good. I literally flew in for a couple hours.
What is that?
I flew in for a couple hours. I'm leaving. My flight leaves at 8.
Oh, wow. Hello. Good, how about you?
Is this your room? I assume that.
How are you? I'm so sorry, I didn't.
I know it's too much, but
You will call.
Yeah. Hey there.
How are you? Good to see you. Hi, how are you? It's so hot in here.
Hello. Do you remember me? I'm Kim.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
You're good.
Like,
You're good.
oh, it's really good. This is my favorite sister. The conference was really good. It was really good. Yeah,
Thank you again for doing this.
Oh, yeah. This will be fun.
I'm 7 minutes late.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready?
You too.
Let's
One for me, one for you. No worries. Oh, thank you. Okay. Well, I'll tell everybody. Oh, then I don't mind. I tell them you did it.
Someone did not show up today, then he asked me to record a video.
Oh, yeah. And I'm recording. I'm going to record too.
Okay, so.
But you can record me too. It doesn't matter.
Oh, that's
If
good.
you want to record, that's fine. Yeah.
That's already a start.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, that's fine. I don't have any issue with it. If you can post that online and get somebody to watch it, I'm good with it. I think it would be good.
Oh, okay. That's your wish.
Be careful what you wish for. Okay, all right, I'm gonna start recording. Alrighty, well, good afternoon, everybody. So it's good to see everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to try to stay as close to the computer as I can because I am recording. So just before we get started, you don't need this exactly right now, but does everybody have a hard copy of the handout I gave you? Okay. All right. So also while you're kind of getting settled into your seats, I know that Dr. Ibar sent you some files, so you want to make sure I wrote the big 3 on the board that you need. You want to make sure that you have the Excel file. It's called IB_panel sim, because I simulated it, 200 firms over 8 years. That's the data we're going to be working with in our lab. And then you want to make sure that you have the step-by-step e-views document. And then for those of you in Dr. Dakar's class, you are going to have a take-home assignment. Everybody has a take-home assignment, but only those of you in Dr. Dakar's class has got a graded take-home assignment that I have created. I know he's going to talk to you about how he's going to grade it, but it will be a graded assignment. I'm going to give it to you at the end of class today, and it will be due next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Next Tuesday. By Tuesday, before you come to the 2 o'clock seminar.
They already know that.
Oh, okay, okay. I just want to make sure everybody knows.
Yes, I'm glad you
Yeah.
reinforce it. Yeah.
And those of you who are not in Dr. Dakar's class, hopefully you will do the take-home assignment, because it may help you learn something about endogeneity, panel regression, that may help you get through a peer review publication someday. And I could, so to speak, we'll talk a lot about peer review publication, but I'm constantly in that world. So this topic of endogeneity, particularly for international business, for you all, for your publishing, it comes up over and over and over again. And knowing there's not really a quote-unquote solution to it, but knowing how to deal with it, trying to mitigate it in some way, can literally be the difference between like getting a journal reject, getting your paper rejected, and making it actually through the entire process, right? So it's good for all of us. Alrighty, okay, so the way this is gonna kind of run today is we're gonna have about 20-25 minutes of just discussion about endogeneity, panel regression, right? But a large majority of today's workshop is going to be hands-on, right? Several of you have had me in class. How do you learn? How do you learn how to build a model? You build the model. You interpret the model. You use the model. See, it's the best way I know. So this is going to be very active today with you all. It's going to be very hands-on, very applied, okay? All right, so today we're talking about panel regression, endogeneity. So here are some questions that often comes up in international business research. So do firms that internationalize, do they grow faster? Does exporting cause a firm to become more productive? Do multinational strategies, does that improve a firm's performance? Kind of simple on the surface, but these questions are actually much harder to answer than they seem like, especially from a quantitative standpoint. Here's the big thing that you have to kind of tease out of your research. You have to try to separate, and you can't do this 100%. These two things cannot be mutually exclusive. But can you somehow tease out the difference between a cause, something is causing export growth to increase, and a pre-existing condition? Is export increasing because of something that the firm is just naturally doing in its natural day-to-day business operations? Okay? So what if you wanted to compare like firms that internationalize, go international, versus firms that don't? Okay? Well, if you knew that firms that internationalize, if they did perform better, your next question that you have to like try to answer, I would say try to answer quantitatively, is why is that? Why is a firm that internationalizes, why is it doing better? Could it be that going international caused the firm to just have better performance? Or was there some pre-existing condition? The firm was already doing well before it internationalized. So how do you know which is which? How do you separate this as much as you can? So when I say pre-existing differences, pre-existing reasons, what do I mean? Just very simply, it's things that firms are doing, it's things that companies are doing before the decision to go international was made. Some companies, some firms have better managers. They have a better management style than some. Some firms already have some international experience. Maybe they've got a stronger network. Maybe they're more innovative. So if you want to try to measure this, to try to quantify this, how do you do this? It turns out that it's very difficult. It's very difficult to quantify and measure good management style versus bad management style, right? More international experience would be easier to quantify. Innovative cultures, I kind of think would be a hybrid, right? Because what's innovative, you're kind of getting into some objective questions there, you know? So these are really hard pre-existing differences to quantify. And all of this background leads you to a problem in international business, and actually throughout a lot of, you see this actually pop up even in some finance, you see this. Endogeneity. So what is endogeneity? It's when one of the variables that you think is affecting your outcome gets mixed, I call it mixed up. I'm trying to kind of keep it a little bit layman's terms here. Kind of get mixed up with other variables that you also think is affecting the outcome. But what this means more so from like your research standpoint is you can't determine what's causing something, what's causing export growth to increase, and what was already pre-existing there, a background difference, something that the firm was already doing really well. So you have trouble separating these two. And you encounter this, probably all of you, particularly those of you who are thinking about like quantitative type studies, you're more than likely going to encounter this in your research. You definitely are going to encounter it wherever you go after SNHU. You go start your career as an assistant professor at a university, right? You got to publish to rise through the ranks at most universities. So when you're publishing in this world of international business, endogeneity is gonna creep up in your research. Okay? So that's why we wanna get to you all early. I want you to start thinking about these issues early. Over the course of these 2 days, I'm just gonna kind of chip away at the iceberg today with fixed effects regression. But next week, we will start more so into actually trying to address endogeneity with random effects. That's even quote unquote better than fixed effects in terms of addressing endogeneity. So we want to give you all some quantitative techniques that if you encounter this problem, you at least have methods to mitigate this endogeneity problem. So this is really our core focus for the next couple of days together. So today we're going to look at panel regression. All of you have either been through Dr. Dakar's quantitative class or are currently in it. So a model that you all are familiar with is panel regression. So I'm gonna start there today, right? Just kind of starting us off somewhere we're all comfortable with. Why, when you do panel regression with fixed effects, that's what we're gonna focus on today, are the results biased? Endogeneity is really a bias problem, especially when you're talking about it in the context of panel regression, particularly fixed effects. And what do I mean by bias? Because bias means a lot of things in the world of statistics. Right? But in this case, the coefficients from the model, the parameter estimates that you obtain from your model, they're either too small or they're too large. Okay? So if it's too large, you might be giving over-reliance to some strategy that a firm already had the ability to do really well. That would be like an over-reliance. That would be a bias. Many papers that you read, especially in the world of international business, finance, if you have an endogeneity problem and a reviewer picks up on it and you don't address it, you should get a desk reject. Desk reject is when he rejects your paper, you're not even going under peer review, right? You probably really should do that. But if he does let you go through the peer review process, if you don't address endogeneity, that's the first question that's coming back to you. How did you address it? You need to address it, right? So you will often get this question. I would think, I'm just starting to get on some of your PhD committees. Richard and I are going to be meeting very soon about his endogeneity problem that he will probably more than likely encounter. So I would also think that professors, faculty on your dissertation committees would also be asking you questions like this as well. Okay, so we're going to just back up just a little bit. I want to set some vocabulary, some terminology, just before we get into the lab that we're all comfortable with. Cross-sectional data. Cross-sectional versus panel data. What is the difference? So the first thing you have to recognize that when you go get data for your research, for your dissertation, for your paper, well, what type is it, right? So I very much live in the business data analytics program. One thing I always tell my students, and I know this is extremely simple, but what does each row represent? What does each row in your data set represent? I know it's simple, but there's a lot of power in that. If you can't recognize the data type and the data structure, the bird's not getting off the ground. Okay? So when we say cross-sectional data, what we mean is that I'm observing the firm, the company, one time. One row in my data set is one firm, and I'm only looking at that firm at one single point in time. So I'm looking at export growth in 2023, or I'm looking at the strategy in 2023. One snapshot in time. Why is cross-sectional? There could be some exceptions, but why is cross-sectional not the way you want to go in your research?
It could be something like the pandemic or something like outlying factor that happened at specific years. Absolutely,
right? Firms don't just exist at one snapshot in time, right? You more than likely, for your international business research, you're observing firms, how they operate over multiple years, right? More so though for I'm trying to get at this at the endogeneity route, like kind of relating it back to endogeneity, is the cross-sectional regression, that you can compare the firms across each other, right? But that may not really be true, right? They differ, but in unobserved ways that you can't necessarily see or observe, like the better management. One firm could have better management than the other. And it's those differences that will determine whether a firm decides to go international or not. And this is where endogeneity creeps in, because you don't know. Did the firm, is it doing well in an international setting because it always had a really core strength that no matter what environment it's in, it's going to succeed? Or is it the fact that they went international that made them succeed for some outcome variable? Panel data. What's panel data? You observe the firm over multiple years. So one firm, many years. So I observed firm A in 2012, 2013, and so on. This allows me to compare the same firm within itself. So what do I mean by within firm variation? I'm trying to kind of say this in layman's terms, right? How does a single firm change over time? How does this single firm change over time? If I do cross-sectional, I'm comparing the firm to everybody else. You know, that's not a fair comparison. So this allows me to look like it affirm export growth before and after adopting an international strategy. That leads us back to last seminar, propensity score matching. That's really what we focused on. Propensity score matching is a way to handle endogeneity. Okay? This is just another way, which you're learning today. Okay? The R&D spending, did it increase or decrease when firm A went international? So panel allows me not to compare firm A to firm B, but I'm comparing firm A to itself over time. Okay? This is what panel regression allows you to do. Now it is different, right? So with panel regression, you can't do a before and after. This is just one example of endogeneity. Like if I was gonna handle this problem, I'd go back to propensity score matching. Okay? But panel regression really allows me to look at the firm, compare it within itself over time, not to others. Okay? So why does this help me? So how did the firm change over time? Instead of how are firms different from each other? How are different from firms different from each other? I can answer this, but I don't want to do it with regression, or at least a panel regression. I want to do something like a propensity score matching. Okay? All right, okay, so we're going to talk today about a fixed effects panel regression. Okay? So when I say fixed effects, what do I mean? What is this about? They help you control for variables, characteristics of a firm that do not change over time. In the literature, these are called time invariant characteristics, time invariant variables. Okay? So even if we measure them, they should not change over time. Okay? All right, here are some examples, like managerial talent, corporate culture, the capability of the firm. Okay? It helps me, doesn't solve the problem completely, but it helps me measure these things. Time invariant, this is a term that you will hear over and over in the international business research. Time invariant, right, just means it does not change. The subject, the topic, the element, management, strategy does not change over the time period. Okay? And there are some examples, like core technology doesn't change, maybe. Fixed effects, what does it help me do? Compare the firm to itself. It doesn't completely remove it doesn't completely help you separate cause from pre-existing conditions, but it does help mitigate it a little. Fixed effects is kind of like where you start, right? Next week, random effects will even help us more, okay? But this removes some of that pre-existing conditions. And you're gonna see that through a hands-on example today. I have a data set, we're gonna do a regular regression, we're gonna do a fixed effects regression, and I'm gonna quantitatively show you what I mean. It removes that pre-existing condition. Okay. So instead of saying, I'm gonna compare firm A to firm B, this is what panel regression, fixed effects panel regression helps you ask. Does firm A perform better after changing strategy than before? So it helps isolate the effect of the international, let's say in this case, the international strategy. But fixed effects, it does not, there's a lot of things it does not fix. Again, this is a starting point. It does not solve reverse causality. Okay? So what do I mean by reverse causality? Okay? So a firm goes international, right? And they start to grow really fast, right? Are they growing really fast because they went international? Or is it because they were already a really strong firm with some characteristic? I don't know. That's endogeneity. Fixed effects doesn't even come close to this. Okay? Time varying variables that are omitted. Okay? So here's an example. You get a new CEO, or you get a technology upgrade, right? Maybe all of a sudden you've installed Tableau with the Einstein agents, and you fired 50 people. Some big technology upgrade. It changes strategy and performance. And this change happens over the time period that you're looking at. Fixed effects will not measure this. You don't have any way to account for this. Measurement error. Of course, is in every firm, right? Sometimes things are just not measured correctly. Export growth is just not measured correctly. We made a mistake somehow, right? That's an error. So panel regression, fixed effects, it'll help reduce some of this bias. And you're gonna see that today, right? But it definitely does not create causality. You can't say, you can never, in a panel regression, you can never say, this is causing this. This effect is causing the outcome. All right, so what are we gonna do today? Okay, we're gonna run a regression. We're gonna do a panel structure. We're gonna look at a fixed effects model. And we're gonna say, was bias reduced? And what bias remains? Beautiful thing about the publication world is there is a section you put in your paper called limitations. And if you write it well enough, you can sometimes have a really bad model and you can get it published because your limitations section is so strong. If you really make a good case for why you can't measure what you need to, right? So what bias remain, and this is kind of where your take-home assignment is. You're gonna practice with your take-home assignment today. You're gonna practice as if you were making a case to a journal reviewer or to your dissertation committee about what fixed effects fixes and what still remains. When I was creating it, I was trying to get you in the habit of writing that limitation section, okay? So what was reduced, what remains, what are your limitations, okay? And again, what do I mean by biased? The estimated effect. What I mean is the parameter estimate in the model. It's either too high or it's too low. because I didn't measure something correctly, or I couldn't measure something. Something was not properly accounted for. Okay? If you don't control for something that you know is pre-existing, right? You can overstate the benefit of internationalization. This is really what reviewers tend to look at, right? When they're looking for endogeneity problems. Or you overstate, well, I'm looking at it through the lens of going international because, company going international, because that's in the context of our problem today. But you can overstate the benefit of your outcome variable. Okay? So fixed effects, this is a great place for you to start to think about endogeneity. Okay? I would definitely say if you want to publish in like a B+ or better journal, you definitely don't just need to stop at fixed effects. You need to, like next week we're gonna do random effects, right? That's even a step more towards trying to mitigate endogeneity. There's also some models. I have written a summer grant. There's also another model that really helps you with endogeneity, difference in difference. So hopefully I'll obtain the summer grant and I'll be back next year talking to you all about difference in difference. So there are other models out there that handle this endogeneity problem. Okay? But we're gonna make a good start at it over the next 2 days. Okay, so I just want to spend about 20 minutes. I just kind of want to get our minds into the this problem, this context, right? So now what we're going to do, fun part, is we're going to build a model. Okay, so all right, the handout that I gave you. So from Dr. Ibar, you have this Word document. It's named Day 1 Panel Regression Step-by-Step eViews Lab, and I do too. So what I did, I simulated some data as close to what I see in the international business research world. So as you're kind of, getting you also have a hard copy if you just want to follow step by step. Those of you who came to the propensity scoring model workshop, I like my detail. There's literally step by step instructions because I don't want anybody to get lost. And then also as you're getting settled in, somewhere on your laptop, save the Excel file that Dr. Ibar sent you. It's IB_panel_sim. So you just want to save that somewhere on your laptop so that it'll be easily accessible so that when we open it up in eViews. And I tell you what I'm going to do. So we have a student joining us online, and this is not at all my style to stay behind the podium. As some of you have had me know.
Next week there will be a camera, so you won't have to stick to the thing. And today they couldn't do it because of the TEDx event, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, it's fine. So, but just to compromise, because I don't want the student online. If I walk over there and start writing on the board, she's going to miss everything. So I think what I'm going to do. So you've got a hard copy. You can take hard copy notes. I think what I'm going to do is just put my notes right here in my lab document. Okay? So if you want to follow along electronically, you've got the Word document. Okay. Okay, so what's the purpose? What are we doing here? Okay, so we've kind of already set the stage for this. Why is endogeneity a problem? how does a fixed effects panel model help us reduce some of that problem, formerly known as bias? What fixed effects do and what they do not do, right? It's always important. You're not going to find a statistical model out there that completely 100% solves your problem of endogeneity, right? But you've got to find the one that solves it as much as you can, right? So it always goes back to, I'm a huge proponent of what's my research question, right? Because my research question always drives the appropriate model. Okay? So like you just saw a minute ago, I talked about when is propensity scoring model useful? When is panel regression useful? When is difference in difference model useful, right? You've got to hit that on the head, right? You got to hit that right on the nail if you want a good peer-reviewed journal article, right? Or if you want a solid dissertation that you can turn into. The whole goal of your dissertation, and this, in my generation, this was just getting started. Like nowadays, I don't know how, I don't think the format here is this, but there are some places that will let you just write 3 papers. You know, you have to have them under review at a certain point, and that's your dissertation. But the whole point, part of the point of your dissertation is that when you leave here, especially if you're going to a university and you want to start rising up through the ranks of the professorship, make it so that you have written it so well that you just basically have to extract parts of it and turn it into a journal paper. So you wanna write that well, you wanna do that good in your dissertation, because then it's like your stepping stone to your first journal article. That's at least what I always try to get my students to do. Okay, so knowing what model to pick when, right? Knowing what the model will do and what the model will not do, because you're going to have to write a limitations section. So what does the model fix? What does it not fix? Okay? All right. So what we're going to do today is we are going to run a pooled OLS, my old friend, Ordinary Least Squares, OLS. Pooled, that means that you are treating the data as cross-sectional. Okay, we'll talk about that. We're going to do kind of your standard regression. I'm going to pretend like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just going to run a regression. And then I'm going to smarten up and I'm going to say this is not the thing to do. Now I'm going to run a fixed effects because I have more knowledge now. I know that will help me with endogeneity, and we're going to compare. And I'm going to show you numerically where that bias is reduced. Okay? All right, so here's our research question for the day. Does adopting an international strategy increase a firm's export growth? That's my question. So does adopting an international strategy increase a firm's export growth? This comes up a lot in international business.
Julie, may I ask you a question about that? We have a time series dimension. So a company, I mean, in the sample, is it structured in a way that the company adopts international strategy in a particular year? I mean, it's a dummy variable in there.
It will be,
one
yes.
is a binary.
Yes.
So for the years that the binary is 0, the company did not have an international business strategy. In years, it is.
Yes.
So does that change over year? I mean, once it is 1, is it 1 or?
Normally it is.
Okay.
Right? Not that it. And so I'll be honest. I haven't looked at. So I simulated this data.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah.
I'm trying to understand data structure. So. I mean, is it possible that the company might adopt the international business strategy a year, but most likely, and if they did it, I mean, going forward, they will have a strategy, right? I mean, it would not oscillate between 0 and 1. So,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes. Now okay. So in my data, I let it oscillate.
Oscillate, I see, okay.
I did, and part of the reason I did this was So again, this is all simulated. I had to simulate, I had to simulate this in a way so that I could show that a bias exists.
Okay.
But yes, in real world data, so like, and I'm gonna learn more when I'm working with Richard, because we're actually gonna be looking at something very similar to this. I'm expecting, like when we sit down and look at your data, I'm expecting the international strategy to stay, once it goes 1, it's gonna stay 1. That's what I would presume.
Yeah.
Do any of you have data like this? Because again, this is simulated, and I simulate, so I mean, I can simulate anything. So I simulated it with certain statistical properties so that I could show today where the bias is in a normal regression. Do any of you have, like in the data that you're working on in your dissertation, do you have a variable for international strategy? Anybody working on anything like that?
Usually, I mean, it is not necessarily international study, but a type of, let's say, if a company had an acquisition in a given year, or had a strategic alliance in a year, or something of that sort. I mean, it's a little more nuanced that, you know, whether there's an international business strategy or not, but there's some form of,
like a proxy.
Yeah.
But no, I would expect that once this goes 1, it does not change to 0 again. Yeah.
I mean, it could be that, I just thought about somewhere, I mean, it could be that, for instance, a company can issue, let's say, equity in a year, that could be year 1, and then, or just bond issue or something like that. I mean, there would be situations where there might be oscillation.
Yes.
Still though have the same impact, same characteristics.
Exactly, that's a really good point.
Even if you remove this dummy variable, it will still be panel regression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
and you know, you
absolutely.
could be, instead of international strategy, you could be looking at the effect of R&D intensity.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yes. And I could have easily like simulated it so that when R&D intensity, I could have easily simulated it so that when I do the fixed effects, I can see the bias. Yeah.
I mean, R&D intensity could be the research variable, you know.
Oh yeah, it could be. Absolutely. Okay. Well, actually, I'll keep this up for a minute. You don't necessarily have to open this up. Okay. All right. So, what is it that we're trying to do? Okay. So, a firm decides to adopt an international strategy. Okay. Also, this is not random. Firms don't just randomly say, I'm gonna, adopt this strategy. As we talked about before, these pre-existing conditions, these pre-existing differences, firms can just be naturally stronger than one another. Maybe they have better management. Maybe some of them already have some international experience, right? But you cannot observe this in the data, but here's what's going on at the same time, and this is where endogeneity comes into play, right? Firms with these strengths, if you have all these strengths, you are probably more likely to internationalize, but you're also more likely to increase your export growth. Both those things could be true. So the decision to internationalize and export growth, right? That affects these unobserved things you can observe, and this is the heart of endogeneity. Right? Because you can't observe these strengths, it's really hard for me to quantify good management, a good manager versus a bad manager. I mean, how do I quantify that and put it in a regression model? I mean, it's almost impossible, right? So, because I can't observe these strengths, they could both be, all of these things could be leading both to internationalization, a variable that I'm going to use as my explanatory, my predictor variable, And they could be leading to the cause of my Y variable, my export growth. And I can't tease them apart. And that's endogeneity. That's the whole problem with endogeneity. Okay? All right, okay, so the data that we have to work with, so you don't necessarily have to open this up. I always like to give you a data dictionary. You don't have to open up the Excel file, but I am a big proponent. I like to look at my data, right? So if you open up the Excel file, this is the data we're going to be working with. Oh, yes, Richard, yes.
Just a quick one. I wanted a clarification on if you are discussing pre-existing conditions, is it the same as when we talk about control variable in the regression format? Are they the same or the
It is. It's the exact same thing. It's something I'm trying to control for. Like in this case, the control variable in this problem would be, so this is going to be one of my explanatory variables, my predictor variables, international strategy. I'm trying to control for that. Because I don't know, is export growth due to the fact that some of these firms have things that I can't measure, like good management, really good technology? I mean, how do you measure that, right? Did they decide to go international because, or when they went international and they increased their export, export growth, is it because they had some of those better capabilities that I can't really measure? I don't know. Okay, so here's what we're going to be modeling. Our Y, our dependent, our outcome variable is going to be export growth. This is in percentages, percent data. Okay, I'm going to use the region, the firm size, R&D intensity. This is the spending as a fraction of revenue. So the higher, the more they've put into R&D. And then I am going to use, did they have an international strategy in this particular year? Okay. So 0 means, so like for this firm in 2013, this firm did not have an international strategy. Here it did. Okay. All these others, I just left this in here. I needed these to simulate the data, so you can just ignore those. Okay. All right. So you see here, I'm observing the same firm over multiple years. Okay, so that's where the panel data comes in. I don't have to save it. Okay. All right, so we're going to move through getting the data into eViews. All right, so this is, if you are following along with me, hard copy, we are on page 3, which I realize now I did not label. I should have numbered these. Okay, all right, I'm going to open up my eViews account. When you open up eViews, you want to select the third option, open a foreign file. Open a foreign file. Open a foreign file, and then you just navigate to wherever you saved it. So for me, all right, we don't just click finish here. We are going to roll through these. We're going to roll through these because we want to make sure on step 5. You're just going to roll through step 1, step 2, step 3. On step 5, I think it's set by default, but I just wanted to make sure. Make sure that it says the basic structure is dated panel. Make sure that the cross-section ID is firm ID, and make sure that your date series is year. And there's a screenshot there on page 3. I think it's the default, but I just want to make sure. You look like me, you look like the screenshot on page 3, finish. And yes, you can link to an external source. Alright, so I'm going to be quiet for just a few minutes. We've got our data in. You have looked at the data in Excel, right? So we're going to have these things, I just call them student checkpoints along the way. I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes. Let you have some time to answer this, and I'll give you some notes. Why is this data panel data rather than cross-section?
Because of the years, this is looking at multiple years to the 200 firms.
Multiple years for 200 firms, but what's special about those multiple years? Yes.
So it's time series and cross-sectional combined, so there's multiple pieces of data for the multiple years.
Yes, but it's not cross-sectional. It's not cross-sectional.
Time series.
But it is time series, panel. Time series are panel data. So everything you said was correct, except it's not. Did you say that together? It's not panel and
It's
cross-sectional.
not technically cross-sectional, but I was saying it's easy to think of panel regression as like a time series and cross-sectional hybrid.
I guess you could, because if you just plucked out one row for that firm, that would be cross-sectional. So it is like a hybrid.
Isn't the firms are the cross-section and the years are the time series? Wouldn't that be?
Yes. Yes.
It has 2 dimensions, the who and when.
It has 2 dimensions. You can think of it that way. Yes. Richard?
I would say it's panel because it's tracking the performance of one firm over multiple years.
It's one firm over multiple times. Yes. And you all are saying very similar things.
So I think the key thing is that the cross-section elements do not change. I guess in some of the full time series data, the cross-section units might be different units.
Oh,
but,
they can be.
In this case.
They can be.
Yeah.
Yes, they absolutely can be. Yes. Yeah, just big thing is firm 1 is repeated over time.
These are always the same firms followed through over the.
Yes, over the same units of time.
We have 200 problems.
And we have 200 of them, yes.
So 200 problems.
200
Files?
panels, yes, you can think of it, you can definitely think of it that way. So it's always good, again, I know this is like, simple, but it sounds simple, but when you start talking it out, right? Because again, knowing the structure of your data, that drives the model you're gonna choose, right? And if that's not right, the bird is not getting off the ground. Then everything else becomes wrong. Okay? So here I'll write my answers in blue, so it'll be easy, maybe easy. Easy is a relative word. Okay, so let's see. Same firms are repeated over time, right? This is the key phrase, I guess you'd say. Another way you can think of it is, I'm just trying to kind of put together what you all said. Multiple rows per firm across different years. Going to what Dr. Ibar and Celia was definitely getting at. firm ID repeats over the same time period. Okay, so we're gonna first pretend like we don't know what we're doing. We're gonna first pretend like this is my actual research question, one of them from my research. Does adopting an international strategy increase a firm's export growth? All right, I go out to some database, I obtain data that looks like this. I went through Dr. DeCar's quantitative class. I remember regression a little bit. But I don't remember all the nuances. I know there's multiple regressions, but I'm just gonna pick one. I'm just gonna run regression, just regular regression, right? A lot of people do this. But we're doing a little bit of the smart thinking on the beginning, right? We're identifying our data. But I'm doing this, I'm intentionally doing the wrong thing to show you where you can physically see this bias that comes into play. Okay, so let's just say I don't know what I'm doing. I remember regression. Everybody runs a regression. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do in eViews. Okay, I'm just going to run the ordinary least squares regression. Okay, so I have you all instructions. I should have numbered these pages. So if you flip over, let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, page 4. About 3/4 of the way down, way you build a regression in eViews. Use your menu options up at the top left. I'm going across File, Edit, Open. Use your menu options. Go to Quick. Estimate equation. Quick estimate equation. And this is where you enter your equation in eViews. Okay? So in eViews, syntax matters, right? It's like I'm coding. I'm back in predictive analytics, and I'm using R. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's giving me this error message, so I can't even move to.
Okay.
To the step.
Okay. Did you get your? Oh, I'll be quiet. I'll let you all help each other. Yeah, I should stop and say, does everybody have their data in? Good, okay. Celia, are you good? Did you get your data in? Are you good? Good, okay, just want to make sure. Okay, all right, everybody is got their data in, looks like me up here. Okay, so in eViews, to run a regression, up at the top left, your menu options, File, Edit, Quick, estimate equation. eViews, the way you enter your variables matters. The first thing you do is, it's just like you're writing out the equation, right? What's your y? What's on the left-hand side? For me, I am trying to model, I'm trying to explain something about export growth. And you have to type it exactly as it is spelled in the data. So export growth, I cannot make this screen any bigger. So I know it's not like I'm in Excel, you can make bigger. I can't, oh wait, no, I say I can't. No, Control Plus doesn't work. So you say export growth, then it's like you just imagine in your mind equals, then you say C is the intercept for the model, the constant you might think of, and then you list out all of the explanatory, the variables that you think will estimate export growth. So for us, we are going to use that.
Is there a space between export growth and C?
Yes. Export growth space, little c space. Oh, and on page 4, on page 4, I took this and I copied it and I put it in a box right there. You could just copy that.
Yeah, I do that.
Okay, let's just copy that.
It's easy.
And copy that. And just copy it. Put it in here. I'm gonna wait just a minute, make sure everybody's caught up. In your research, to the best of your ability, if you can try to identify what is the variable that you think is causing the endogeneity problem, if you can identify to the best of your ability, what variable do you think is causing the endogeneity problem? It will make for much stronger research. It will make for a much stronger paper because it shows a reviewer, it shows your dissertation committee that you have really thought this out, right? And you'll see as we go through this lab, because I tried to do this, I kind of imagine myself, even though I'm about as far away from international business as you can get, I try to imagine myself as a researcher in this field. Yes, Dr.
Look, maybe one thing that could help to clarify the concept of endogeneity is that there are some unobserved factors or the factors that are not accounted in the model. But those factors might influence the variables that we have in the model, right?
Exactly.
So,
yes.
I mean,
Yes.
some of those, even if we could not measure or even, account for. Some of them are maybe omitted, that also might cause endogeneity. So, I think it might be easier just to think along those lines that, there are some factors that might affect the explanatory variables, but they're not in the model.
Exactly. Also, thinking that through, that will also make your research stronger.
Yep.
Absolutely. And on the first page, I go through some of those, right? Like for instance, what is something that could affect export growth, but I just can't measure? Better management.
Exactly.
How,
those are time invariant characteristics.
Yes. How good are my technology core, right? So yes, I definitely. So that argument is made on the first page. Absolutely. So yes, I should back up a step. So yes, to address endogeneity, what is it that you cannot measure that you think could be affecting one of your explanatory variables? Yes, Richard, and then I'll go to Celia.
One important point will always be the company culture.
Absolutely. Company culture is something. Absolutely. I can't, it's really hard to measure. I probably can't measure it.
Yeah, sometimes they measure it as bureaucratic, entrepreneurial, this and that, but you're right that it's not easily capturable characteristic, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Celia.
So is this captured then under error? We found that, everything would be go to error or cannot measure itself, it's not there.
So what we cannot measure is just not there.
It's not there.
Right,
So the error related what variables that we could capture and they were measurable.
Yes. And that error is the part of the variability in the y that I can't explain with the variables I have. That's what the error is.
Yeah, I had the same question in my mind.
Yes.
First, because is there any kind of I don't know how to put it, but is there any kind of differences between in the indigeneity problem and the error term? So all the things that we are thinking in indigeneity, are those things can be written down in the error terms or not? I mean in the error values.
It's a really good question. My first, so I want to do some research on that. I'm thinking no, but I don't want to, because if you can't measure it, or it's not in your model.
So error is also not measured, but it is there in our model. In every model, there is an error term.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
There could be factors that might be affecting, in this case, export growth, right? I mean, but we don't have it in the model, they're out, right? So some of those might also affect the explanatory factors. Okay, so if there is something like that, then we do have an indigeneity issue. So, I mean, since they are not in the model, they are lumped into the error term.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what.
So that, the errors, since they have an impact on the, let's say, they affect the internationalization strategy, then now we have a problem because normally the error term should be independent of any of the explanatory factors, right?
Yes.
So that creates the problem.
Yes.
That's why actually our coefficient turns out to be biased.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so indigeneity is not in the error term.
Indigeneity is the situation where things that are not measured or accounted for affecting the explanatory factors. That's the situation.
Yes, Richard.
Just to make a contribution with what I'm planning to do, I'm trying to look at the impact of, let's say, fintech on bank's performance.
Yeah.
I'm understanding the need to mean the pre-existing conditions, because I'm measuring 2014 to 2024. But before 2014, the bank might have had some specific advantages that are not measurable, but that will give them the basis to improve on their performance as I continue to measure. So I'm looking at it as a pre-existing condition before the research group. I don't know if that's correct.
It can be one of the that can cause the
But it's before your research period, so I'm not going to say yes or no because I need to think about that.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
go by what you said as the pre-existing conditions. That is what I'm trying to interpret as. These are the firm specific advantages before the research period. So if you are trying to measure the impact, then find a way to isolate the pre-existing conditions so that will not impact the research.
One important qualifier is that pre-existing condition does not change over time. I mean, it definitely affects the performance or certain things, but it doesn't change over time. I think that's the time invariant element.
Yes. Yes, and we'll have a lot more discussion about that for sure. Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. So here we're just going to go ahead and run this model, and this. Let me just make sure I'm on the right page here. There's no options you need to select. You're just going to select OK. Okay. I'm going to move us on a little quickly here because we are going to take a break in about 10 minutes, and that will give us less than an hour when we get back. So I'm just going to kind of move us along here. Okay, so this is a pooled OLS. All right. So in your worksheet, in your workbook here, okay, we just ran a pooled OLS. What did this do? This basically ignored the panel structure. It ignored that we have data over. We have the firms observed over multiple years. It's just treating each row, each firm independent, okay? So what I want to do is I want you to focus on this international strategy variable. And this is going right back to what Dr. Ibar said. It's the whole heart of endogeneity. I have these variables here, these firms that I can't measure. Management, technology, corporate culture. That definitely affects international strategy. One of my explanatory, one of my predictor variables in my model, right? I'm trying to mitigate some of that, okay? I'm pretending like right now, I don't know that this is panel data, and I don't even really know about this endogeneity. So I just run a regular old regression, okay? I want you to write down what is the estimated coefficient for international strategy. Look here, it's 1. It's 1.0, just 1, okay? So just make a note of that. Okay. Then also, I actually, because it differs in every single software package known to man, about what is the base or the reference level, okay? Number 2, I want to make sure that you can interpret that coefficient. What does it mean? What does it appear? I put that in italics because I'm presuming right now that I don't know what I'm doing, and what is it telling me? Before you interpret anything, I don't care what piece of software you are working with, always go to the help, I would say don't go to ChatGPT. Google's maybe okay. So I got this right out of the eViews help manual, okay? You have a binary variable. 0 means firm did not adopt international strategy. 1 means it did, okay? 0 in eViews is always your reference. It's not always in R, it's different in R, Python, SAS, it's even different in Excel. Wow. But in eViews, 0 is your baseline. Why is this important? Because this is gonna affect the way you interpret the coefficient. I'm not gonna belabor this point, but when I did the propensity scoring model, I had a whole section on categorical variables and regression and how they're treated and how to interpret them. And we interpreted those in the workbook that we went through. So you can go back to that for reference, right? So the baseline is always what you are comparing to. And in eViews, if you have a binary variable that's coded 0, 1, 0 is your base or reference level. So what this 1 coefficient is, this is the coefficient for international strategy of 1. You did adopt international strategy, okay? So how do you go about interpreting that? What does that tell you, okay? So you always take the 0 is my base or my reference. So I'm looking at firms that did, okay? So firms that did adopt international strategy. International. Make this blue. Okay, so I'm interpreting a regression. What does a regression technically model? The average of the Y has, on average, 1 is positive, the 1 is positive, and those are in percentage points. 1 percentage point higher, it's higher because the coefficient is positive. Higher what? Well, what's my Y? What is it that I'm trying to explain something about? Export growth. Okay, and this is where the categorical interpretation is different than a continuous interpretation. I am comparing firms that did adopt to firms that did not adopt. What is your base or your reference? 0, did not adopt. How do you interpret a categorical variable in regression? You take that coefficient and you compare to the baseline, the reference. That's why knowing what your baseline or your reference group is in any piece of software you use is so important, or you'll get your interpretation wrong, okay? So I'm gonna compare to export growth compared to then firms that did not adopt an international strategy. And just because I'm pretending like I'm in class, nobody really ever writes it this way in a journal article, but because I am in class, what do we always say? Holding all other variables, your x is constant. Okay? So that 1.0 in that model, this is what it means back in the context of my problem. Always, I know we're not in business data analytics class, but those of you that have had me before, everything you do, everything you compute, you always interpret it back in the context of what you are doing. That is a hallmark of a good quantitative analyst. Okay? So what does this mean? If the firm adopted an international strategy, we estimate that they increase their export growth increases by 1% compared to firms that did not, my base or my reference level. Classic way of how you interpret a categorical variable in a regression model. Remember that for your research. Categorical variables in regression are interpreted differently than continuous variables. Go back to my propensity scoring model notes. So we wrote it all out last semester. Okay, all right. So I just put you that in that little reminder. Okay, so this is where we're getting into the bias part of endogeneity. So I just ran an incorrect model. I ran just a regular regression. I basically treated each row as independent. Why would it be biased? And this is going to help us it's going to wrap us back to endogeneity too. Well, could it, okay, go ahead. Could be size, absolutely.
It could also be management quality.
It's something unobserved,
Yeah.
right? We're kind of back to that endogeneity problem. Yep. So here, okay. So let's maybe say firms that choose international strategy, could it be that they're already stronger in some aspect that I can't observe? Right? Firms that choose international strategy may already, this is going back, Richard, to those pre-existing, may already be stronger in some aspect I cannot measure. Corporate culture, management, something I cannot observe. And it's these unobserved variables that influence the export growth. So these unobserved, you could call them, I would call them strengths or weaknesses, because some companies may have poor corporate culture, right? These unobserved strengths, weaknesses, they influence, I think is a good word to use, they influence both international strategy or international adoption and export growth. So this is really getting at the heart of what we were talking about endogeneity is. I've got these unobserved variables, corporate culture, management, that influence whether a firm adopts an international strategy or not. And it also, and I would claim in this case, it's even impacting my Y variable, my export growth. And when you do this pooled model, The pooled OLS treats all rows, firms independently. It ignores firm-specific effects. So this is why it's biased, and I'm trying to get you to think about when I say the pre-existing firm differences. I'm trying to get you to think about really this second note I have here. I'm trying to wrap you back to that idea of endogeneity. Those things you cannot measure that you all have said, they influence that explanatory variable, international strategy. Pooled OLS doesn't even touch this. Desk reject if you do something like this. Okay? All right, so I'll give you all the option. Do you want to take like a 10, let's do 10 minutes. Well, actually come back at 5:10. Do a 10-minute break. Well, it'd be a 14-minute break. Or do you want to just keep going? We're gonna have to push through. We can do it in 50 minutes. But we'll have to push through. So you want to take a break? Take a break. Okay.
Yes.
Let's take a break. Okay. 10 after 5. Starting back at 10 after 5. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, Dr. Dakar brought snacks. I'm sorry. I didn't even brought biscotti for us. Ooh, everybody likes biscotti. So you guys help yourself.
Which question? You probably can't read my handwriting. For number 2? Firms that did not adopt a national strategy. Firms that did adopt.
We always bring something.
For 1% point higher.
When I'm around you, I always feel hungry.
1% point higher.
Hi, Dr. Anderson.
Hey, how are you doing? Good.
So I was trying to suggest you one. So while you were using the reviews, I think you cannot zoom it, right?
Oh, yeah,
With that
yeah.
case, you can use a magnifier. Can you go to search?
Well, look at nowadays. Yeah. So I brought what you like.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
it's gonna zoom
There's
it.
less of it. You have like
Oh,
But I think you have to be comfortable with this.
Yeah, being on the
interface, yeah? Just, you can just move around and your screen will just
Oh, thank you so much. I didn't know
Oh,
it.
really?
How do I get?
just
Oh, okay, he's up there. Okay, yes, I do. Ah, perfect. So like if I, yes.
I think this is going to be more useful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I know. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So, you want to
I'll build. Yeah, I'll be. That's all we working with her today. I can watch her.
Yeah, when we will see you, like, by the time you come back, the class will be over.
Come back on March 21st. I'll see you.
That's not so bad.
What the?
Yeah. That's very good.
Gymnastic.
So you expect just what is it? This is unlimited. It's different from national class.
Not much of a committee effort.
This is better.
I said, I can't thank you.
Thank you. So, and what you like? So you will be there, let me see.
I'll give you one.
This is what I need to hear.
Yes, so, where are you going to Texas? Are you going to be like, the daily?
I told you.
People are coming from Middle East early.
You know what? Tomorrow, we're waiting around 8 to 6 p.m.
You just had the glasses on your fire, but the necklace, it looks like you just can't.
Thank you, Dr. Lakar. How are you doing? Yeah, I just wanted to
I mean, more like mental problems and physical problems. You can see body, you can see
Oh, yeah, sure. How long is this? How long is this stuff? How long is this stuff?
I had my
The one that I gave Then I can.
It's not the main document.
Then I can look at it.
Yeah, it's just the highlight. It's not the main document.
Thank you.
to the doctor. I was going for my job. That's exactly.
That's why she is
When you couldn't see something, I was like, I thought you could doctor. Of course you can see those. It's some time. You're like, no one can see nothing. No, you can't. So next to me is right When it makes sense, you assume that what you have is a whole.
I found that when I walked to Thank
You seem a lot happier now that you know what yeah, so now you're working with just that dissertation. Yeah. That's very true. How's that moving along? It's not, like, do you, does it take time to cooperate with the professor that
So you need to put this before now, and then you come back to you can discuss. And then provide stages of dissertation proposal. So the topic proposal, let's say, one slide. So for spring, then for, no, spring is topic proposal.
Right, what was the last one?
Then you go to it's still.
That's good. That makes it more like
So you
Exactly, it's like created someone else. But created someone else what money? Money taken from America. Why they would do that so much? Because the rule that Trump stopped money before they now they don't have money.
She makes clear steps on her cheek. Like, I already finished one
Yeah,
draft.
it's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
It's funny because just get this steps. That was everything like controlling me. I'm like, all under. So it makes you think, you know, we're gonna have to do the same thing, but it's just more, it's just Thank you, Lee.
I think I can put this.
Here's mine. They're gonna throw a couple hundred sacrificial cows. And the big guys are just gonna say that. They don't point out, remember when you got arrested? Everything on the laptop, like, always computer and hardware were already on. Yeah, of course. What? So, did you ever find out who was the one? How are you doing now? Because we only found out when he went to the drug company, but he took all the hardware, like, all the. He took most of that. I'm just surprised the game track. Someone, he knew somehow.
Japanese politicians.
That kind of someone was like fast break. Why are you flying there? Just have to do it.
Oh, okay, so in terms of the
I feel like, did you try to more other, yeah, you can.
yeah.
He learned like all the churches and all that.
Oh, okay.
Suppose like US is
From the, you're talking about, yeah, the release.
You always think that
It was the same like a holy
Do you guys also have to be there?
No.
What do you mean? He won't have to go.
You're also reservist, right?
Oh, no, I'm done with my service. Oh, yeah, he's lucky. He had like the best position possible. I got out, yeah, I knew I was going to get out with Trump. Being a veteran is the best thing ever, as long as you don't have to go back. Because you got a lot of veterans. They have their own parking spots anywhere. I'm done. She can get cold. Yeah, she might. But not for that. That's more like a very one-week campaign. It's not going to be.
They're not gonna put like.
Cake seasoned with chicken meat floss. I'm
Sorry, wall. The thing is going to determine this kind of format. Everyone's doing it. So that's why they treated it almost like a national. Bricks will instantly become a credibility gone out the window. No, they're all, they look surprising when they do that. Otherwise, it's civil war. Other thing is, if you don't, I don't find you. Not just US government, all the Western governments.
Yeah, multiple countries too, like Africa, Europe, it was international.
Jacques Macron said, you know, I would press the victims to France. And then he welcomes the IDF soldiers when they come in.
So that's why I feel like there may be something going behind the counter that we never know.
Yeah, Finland, and
This is one thing to another.
what's the best countries in the world, like Finland and Denmark, and then they hold it absolutely.
Oh,
Don't tell me that's been a prime minister here.
All of them, especially Germany, can't do Germany all.
This whole thing is money, no money. It doesn't matter what side, right? It's people that.
You see what they done in Boston, they built a new Holocaust museum in Boston. They're gonna build like every big city. Oh, you know what they're gonna do? I found out from Israel's solution to the PR. You know what they're gonna do? They started in Australia. It's gonna be illegal for under 15 years olds to use social media, which means you're gonna have to show your ID to open a social media account. Fake ID, and you have to scan it. You have to get approved. And then they're gonna know who's supposed to say what. You say something against Israel, it's gonna show up.
It's gonna going to happen in Australia.
And they have already voted in Australia, and they're voting on it in the EU. They're gonna use it as, oh, social media is bad for kids. So you have to prove that you're not a kid if you use social media. How do you do that? You show us your ID.
So that's why they're gonna track us like
Oh, it's gonna get done. It's gonna be done by AI. So instantly they're gonna be notified. That guy safe address, go get him.
Have you also seen a new Chinese New Year robot video?
Fireworks now.
There's a Chinese New Year
Oh, the robots? Oh, yeah, the new robots, they have like all things and dude, they're super soldiers now. Yeah, the dances. Yeah, they synchronize dances with the humans. Yeah. They did it with the humans. This robot last year couldn't barely walk. And they're gonna do it with the kids, like let's do like a fight so they will.
I live in DC, so I just came in for the day. And so I think with the traffic, I should probably
Yes, it's gonna be like a cyberpunk. We're gonna have the latest city. Get the scan your report. It's not gonna be possible soon. They're not gonna be people.
I'm mostly in business development. This is so quantitative, they asked me to come to some workshops.
Imagine all those rules are like Terminator.
China wanna fight America, they're fighting the same. They're fighting the streets.
Oh, like a soccer match, right?
Exactly. Whoever wins the WWE
It's gonna be recorded.
That's something. Whoever wins, they go great. It's
their problem. It'll be recorded, so you can watch it on the weekend. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started back here, just so I can get you out of here on time. As all my business data analytics students know, the worst thing is to run analytics class over. Oh. Yeah. Okay, let's see. We are.
Thank you, what I need.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, so just to kind of recap here, we've run a regular regression, ordinary least squares on panel data. Should not have done that, but I'm pretending like I don't know what I'm doing. I wrote down a coefficient for international strategy. I'm just noting that right now. Why is bias here? Just to kind of get your minds back into what we were doing, right? So firms that internationalize, right? This is going back to, relating it back to endogeneity. They could already be stronger by, again, things that you can't observe, you can't measure, right? That strength may affect your why, what it is you are trying to model, in this case, export growth, right? So it also could increase them adopting an international strategy, right? Just because they're stronger in some way, okay? If you don't account for this, if you don't do something to mitigate this problem that you've noted, you could overestimate the parameter estimate in that model. So what does that mean? Well, it's a model. What does it mean? Well, again, you as a quantitative researcher, you always interpret everything back in the context of the problem. What did we say just a minute ago? That parameter estimate that we estimated. A firm that adopts an international strategy will increase export growth by 1% versus those that do not. You're about to go tell somebody in management that you'll increase export growth, but in reality, you ran the wrong model because you don't know what you're doing, and you've overestimated what the firm's going to do. They're going to go start making multi-million-dollar decisions off your model, and it's wrong, right? This is why it's important to be trained appropriately in data methods, okay? Which is why we're here, okay? All right, so I'm just giving you some motivation for really making sure you get it, quote unquote, right in your dissertation, in your paper, right? Because some of you may not go into academia. Some of you may decide you're not going to go to a university and rise up through the ranks. You might go into a multinational corporation. And as a PhD in international business, you're going to be you definitely are going to be working with data. You're going to be building models like this, giving management advice on your models. So lots of reasons to hopefully motivate you to really think about this problem and think about your data and think about the appropriate methods, okay? So now I've learned a little bit about endogeneity today. I kind of have even though the concept may not be exactly concrete, I'm aware of it. I realize that what I want to do now is I want to compare in that little block, those 6 years, 7 years, 2012 to 2019 for each firm. I want to compare the firm within itself, okay, within itself. So with some of these time invariant firm characteristics that I can't measure, like management, corporate culture, all that stuff, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to run the fixed effects model, all right? So again, if you just want to copy this, this is going to be like a rinse and repeat in eViews, okay? So we're going to go, actually, I don't need this output anymore. You can just close out this output. Yes, okay? I'm going to go back right to where I was before. I'm going to try my magnifier here. I'm going to go back up here. Menu options, top left, file, edit, object, quick, estimate equation. You're basically just going to put the same model in. I'm just going to copy that in, right? And there is one place here in eViews under panel options, but I'm going to stop here. I'm just going to make sure everybody's when you get here, panel options, the tab up at the top, panel options, you're going to select cross-section, fixed. And what this is going to do that is different from before is this is going to allow you to compare the firm to itself over time. That's what fixed effects does. It allows you to compare the firm to itself over time. How does that help with endogeneity? You got a lot going on here. You got like an abstract problem, endogeneity. Oh yes, go.
Because different firms might have different management styles or factors that we can account for. So
Perfect.
it's less biased, it compares to itself.
Bingo. Bingo. That's what it does. That's the heart of it. And so ask yourselves those questions as you go along in your research, just simple questions, right? Why am I doing this? Does this make sense? You know, is this correct? You know, things like that. So that is the whole reason of how fixed effects. It does not solve it. It does not solve. There's still a lot of problems here, but it's helping me with part of the problem. It's mitigating just a little bit of that endogeneity because I'm comparing the firm to itself over time. And as our friend just said, that helps me. The problem with pooled OLS that we just did, I compared everybody to everybody else. And as our friend, I'm sorry, I don't know your first name. Javi. As Javi said, firm A might have a really different management style than firm B, right? They could have employee turnover rate of like 60% because it's such a bad company to work for. I don't want to compare that to firm B, right? So this helps me with that. Okay, so everything else here can stay the same. Then you just click OK. And you get regression output just like you did before. And then in your worksheet, what I asked you, so you ran the model. We talked about how it helps you with endogeneity. So in your worksheet, I ask you, I'm just going to plug this number here. What is the coefficient for international strategy? It's way different. It's way different, right? Okay, so I'm going to get, so it's 0.74. So it's 0.74. So in my workbook, in my worksheet here, I am here. What is the estimated coefficient? I just want you to write it down. 0.74. Okay. So is that smaller, larger? It's definitely smaller, right? I know that's not a trick question. It's smaller, right? So it's a different coefficient. Okay. So it's 0.74, and it's smaller. Okay, so explain why the coefficient changed. Well, obviously it's a different model, but I'm always trying to get you to write back to endogeneity. Go back to that beginning conversation about the pre-existing differences, right? So I'll be, and sometimes, you know, I also teach for the math department. I'm teaching Calculus 1 this semester. And I always tell my students, so if you don't kind of know like how to get started sometimes, just write down what you know, right? And sometimes writing down what you know will lead you to the answer. I use that a lot especially in calculus. Oh, yeah. Okay, so, all right. So why did it change? Well, so what did I do? What did I change? I ran a fixed effects model. So what does a fixed effects model do? A fixed effects model removes time invariant firm traits. Because as like we just said, I'm no longer now comparing one firm to the other. Oh, and also note, this is also why, those of you who maybe are not necessarily going to think about an academic career, you're going into business. You're going to go work for a company, an international company, right? There's a big difference in how you would explain that coefficient. Like I said, you're working, maybe this is your problem and you're working for a company. What do you do as a quantitative researcher in a company? You go explain the results of the models to a business manager. And these companies make billion-dollar decisions off analytics these days, right? So here what you would be saying is a firm that does adopt an international strategy. What is that? I'm just reminding you of the interpretation. A firm that does adopt an international strategy, their export growth will increase. It increases because it's positive by 0.74 percentage points versus those that do not. Well, that might not sound like a lot to you on the surface, but you put that back in terms of like real dollars. That first model could literally be a multi-million-dollar mistake you make. Right? So as I always say, even research or industry, always interpret the value back in the context of the problem. Because those of you who are going to go into industry, that's going to be your gold. That's what rises you through the ranks in industry, especially with data, is, you know, we can show anybody all day long how to point and click in EViews, right? But what does it mean? How does it apply back to the problem? That you want to be chief data officer? That's what you do, right? Or what? I don't know, international business. I don't really know what your highest level would be, but you want to be the boss. You want to make more money, whatever it is. Okay? So getting the model, I'm making the point of getting the model right is important, right? Not only for your research, but if you were actually doing this in a business, there's a big difference between 1 percentage point and 0.74 percentage points. If we could, maybe what would be interesting is how could I relate that back to real dollars and cents? I'm just thinking out loud here as I'm talking. That would be something interesting to talk about maybe later. Okay, so why did the coefficient change? Yes, I'm running a different model, right? But why? And think about that idea of pre-existing differences. So first, just write down what you know. Well, fixed effects, it removes the time invariant traits, right? The ordinary least squares, right? What did it do? What was the quote unquote problem? I'm saying this is layman's terms. It's mixing up, I would say. It's mixing up the international strategy effect with unobserved variables. It's mixing it. It's not separating things out. Well, it's not at all actually. And it goes back to the answer we just had. It's because you're comparing firms across each other. You're not running the right model. Fixed effects compares the firm within itself. Okay? And this is what I was saying earlier. This is, and again, this is very layman's terms, but here's how you can physically think about this. Some of the, I'm going to call it the 1.0 coefficient from the OLS was pre-existing, or you could even maybe say unobserved variables. And once I remove that, as much as I could, once I remove, and the removing here is me running the fixed effects model, me taking the firm and only comparing it within itself. When I did that, notice what happened to my coefficient. It shrank. It reduced. I went from 1.0 to 0.74. Right? Now I simulated this data, and I simulated it to show you this concept, right? You all are going to be working with real world data. Of course, you're going to have, things that don't look like this because I simulated it. But the idea really today is to get you thinking about endogeneity and how to choose the right model or a model to mitigate as much of it as you can, okay? So I might say the bias was reduced, but not eliminated. So OLS is, it takes into account international strategy and unobserved variables, like we talked about, management, corporate culture. Fixed effects, what does it do? It more isolates international. It more isolates, let me say it like this, the effect of international strategy on export growth. It's less about the unobserved variables. Again, I'm doing this intentionally very layman's terms, where you can have, like a nice concrete example. I'll leave this up here for just a minute, let everybody. A few more minutes, let everybody get caught up. Yes,
Okay, so I was curious, when you mentioned bias was reduced, not eliminated, can you ever eliminate bias?
Okay, so it's a really good question. So this whole thing with like endogeneity. So is there a model? So the endogeneity is the bias. So is there a statistical model that completely handles it? No. The closest that you're speaking to a very classically trained statistician, right? And when I look at this world, but I know you all cannot do this. If you all could run designed experiments, the whole problem would be solved. but you can't. You really can't in the way that this is. Well, that's not true. I guess you could with enough money. I guess you could. But what this is really, this is a cause and effect problem, right? And in statistics, the only way to deal, if you want to know if something causes something, you run a designed experiment. I mean, that's where we got clinical trials. That's how clinical trials came about. You want to know, does a drug cause a person to lose weight or to reduce the tumor? You run a clinical trial is nothing but a designed experiment in the statistical world. The designed experiment, I can claim cause and effect all day. We've got theory, we've got reasoning for it. If you could, I mean, this would be a beautiful, I think, idea for maybe, and I've just honestly never really, in my mind, I don't think you can do it, but if you could just chip away maybe at this idea, could you run a classic design of experiment in an international business context? Yeah.
I think the only way that you can get close to it is what they call quasi-experimental studies. That there is some event that might change the dynamics of things. I think that's as close as you can get to an experimental to
design. Yeah, yeah. So no, there is no what you're trying to do, like in your dissertation, in your research, or even when you go work for a company and you're building these models, you're trying to mitigate it. You're trying to thwart it off as much as possible. But yeah, there's nothing that just completely. There's not a design of experiment analogy for you all over here. Yeah, there's not.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, great question.
Question.
Yeah.
Sorry, by running the fixed effects, is it correct to say that the model first checks for the differences or lack of differences within the firm before it compares them across the years?
Ooh, so this is a question of what's the software doing, right? So if your data is not set up as a panel like this, and you run a fixed effect, like if I ran a fixed effect on cross-sectional data.
Yes, just like what we did, because we take the fixed effects on the options. So I was just trying to see what does that mean actually into maybe in a layman's language, because in the first example we did also run but without the options, and then on the second instance we did the options. So what does that mean? Does it mean that it scans through what are the fixed, I don't know, within the intra-firm?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Now it will check. Yes. Yes, it will check each variable. Yes, and it says, okay, I'm holding you fixed. I'm controlling for this in some way. Yes, Dr. Argo. Yeah.
So if you're fixing like we did, we fixed for the cross section, so that compares the companies against each other. If we were to fix against the time period, would that compare now the companies to each other?
The time, if you compare the time period.
There's like the box for a cross section and then the other box for period.
Yes, are you saying if you switched them?
What she's saying is that if we, I mean, in this case, we are eliminating, let's say, through the fixed effects, we are eliminating the cross-sectional, or at least the impact of cross-sectional differences. If we just reverse this and if we use the period, could we eliminate the period effects and
and now explore country differences instead of, or company to company differences instead of like within company differences?
I'm going to say yes off the top of my head. That makes sense because you're applying the same logic as we just did, just with a different variable.
Because we did this protocol when we choose the fixing the years, and another time we fixed the countries, something like that, for the states. Yeah, so we did fix one time, we fixed the states. Do you remember the death penalty by state? So one time we fixed the years, another time we fixed the states.
Would it be correct to say that, I mean, this is fixed effect regression is equivalent to almost having a dummy variable for each company, right?
Yes.
And then, because those differences are captured by those dummy variables, and then you have the right impact on the international strategy.
That's exactly, yes.
So,
very well said.
It's analytically, under the hood, something like that is going on.
That's exactly, yes. Very good. Yes, good. Okay, we're gonna move on here. I'm gonna finish you up, guys, with section 4, and then we'll talk about your take-home assignment. Okay, so we talked about fixed effects helping us with this problem of endogeneity. Okay, so specifically though, what kind of endogeneity? Because there's it doesn't fix everything as we talked about at the beginning. So what kind of endogeneity? Okay, now here I am going to give you all a little bit more formal terminology so that when you're looking like in the literature and you are looking at vocabulary and verbiage. You will have seen something like this before, and I'm going to kind of summarize what several of you have said. So what does this help me with? Time invariant, omitted variable bias. I actually went to, I looked up a couple of international business panel regression papers, and this is some of the terminology that you'll see in the literature. And this really does summarize what we've talked about today. The omitted variables, those are the things you can't measure. The corporate culture, the management. Fixed effects, a fixed effects model, the variable that you are looking at, it does not need to change over time. It needs to be time invariant. You at least have to presume that. Okay? So in other words, unobserved firm characteristics, variables, the variables in your model, do not change over time. You need to have, these are just some examples, stable corporate culture. These are long-term tech advantage, whatever that might be. Just totally thinking off the top of my head here. So this is helping with that bias, as we talked about earlier, right? Because again, you're comparing firm now within itself. So it's helping you with this time invariant omitted variable bias. I noticed that term was used quite a bit. Okay. All right, but what does this still not solve? There's still a lot of problems with endogeneity, right? One of them that we missed, or we talked about before, is reverse causality. That came up earlier. Reverse causality, what would be?
Export growth might instigate international strategy or something.
Might influence. Later decisions about international strategy. What I'm doing here is I'm preparing you for, if you write a paper in your dissertation, if you use fixed effects, you need to acknowledge what it does, but you also need to acknowledge what it does not solve for you. Okay? This is the beginnings of your limitations. And actually, when I write my limitation sections, I'm still very much old school. I'll just, on a piece of paper, I'll just write down, what are my problems? what are the problems with my model? And I'll just make some bullet points like this. And then I'll start putting it into a Word document, and I'll start making it more, wordsmithing it more, making it more ready for publication. But just make a list. What have I not solved?
But do we have to solve them?
Not necessarily, because some of them maybe you can't, right? I mean, maybe you just don't, or maybe you don't have the training for. A real advanced model would, yes, maybe solve one of these other problems, but you just don't have the training for it. Like I said, I have seen several papers in really good publications, not that great of a model, but because their limitation section was written so well, that's, at least in my mind, I'm like, well, that's how it got published. So I mean, as long as you're honest about what it does and does not do, Now I would say, like, for you all, like next week you're going to learn random effects. Propensity scoring model. If you've been coming to these workshops, you're gaining some more advanced analytical methods. So you all have the advantage. So if you know a more advanced method that would solve one of these, definitely do it. Something that it will not solve. So we just talked about time invariant. it will not solve time varying omitted variables. What are these? Things that change over time, right? That affect both international strategy and export growth, that affect your explanatory variable and your outcome variable.
Is that like a new CEO or a new product?
Yeah. New product, a new CEO, a company does something that like they've never done before. It's like almost like a shock to the company. Some shock to the company.
They could make a major acquisition that puts them in a different line of business or something. There are a lot of other things that.
Supply chain.
Fixed effects help with time invariant, but not time varying. That's all. I think these are like the two big ones. That's all I can think of, like for just kind of big overview topics of what it doesn't. Okay, does anybody need me to leave that up, or can I move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, so this is where you're gonna earn your money. This is where I'm gonna leave you, okay? All right. I want you to pretend like this is the model that you chose for your dissertation, or this was the model that you are gonna submit to a journal article, okay? I want you to explain the model choice. You have to do it. I mean, it's a dissertation defense. You have to defend what you have chosen. You have to do that in papers as well. So there's no better time than the present to get started. Okay? So in your answer, 2 to 3 sentences as if you were explaining model choice, right? I'm not going to be grading these. Dr. Dakar is. Myself, I like conciseness. Like we're also gonna go over these questions, but I would say just get to the point, right? 2 to 3 sentences. Like don't make it go on forever. Tell why were fixed effects used, and acknowledge one limitation that still exists. But when you do it here, you can't just write time varying omitted variables. I'm not saying anybody's gonna do that, but I'm saying you have to make this formal. As if you were, pretend like you were standing in front of your dissertation committee and you were reading it. Or you were defending your model choice to a journal editor, somebody who's questioning you, okay? I've kind of given you notes along the way. I intentionally just kind of gave you like bullet point notes, so you can now put it all together in your mind, okay? So for and if anybody needs, I have I can make you a copy. So for those of you that are in Dr. Dakar's class, your take-home assignment that was in the email that was sent to you by Dr. Ibar, you are basically, if you want a hard copy, I can make you a hard copy before you get out of here. You are basically going to rerun the models that we've run today, but you're going to answer questions in more of a formal way. And I worded them a little bit differently, but your take-home assignment ends with this. It culminates with this, with you defending your model choice. Okay? Because again, as I was creating this, I was thinking, what could help you as a researcher as you move through this dissertation committee, and even as you get out and you even if you're not going into academia, I mean, you end up. I still am. I do a lot of statistical consulting. You will more than likely, if you're like in a quantitative type role, you will end up in some manager, some CEO's office explaining your model, defending your model. So it's always a good practice to get in the habit of this. Okay? So you all, this is due to Dr. Dakar before you come to seminar on Tuesday. We're going to go over the answers because it's this question that will lead us into, so next week is random effects. We're going to do random effects, which actually even helps you more with endogeneity. So you'll extend what you learned today. Okay? All right, so with that, we are done. So feel free to get out of here. If somebody wants a hard copy of the take-home assignment, I can go make you a copy. Happy to do that. Just let me know. And Dr. Dakar, do you want to say
I
anything?
just want to say that, so there will be a folder, like always, for the homework assignment. And this time, please do it, you have a little bit less than a week to do. So please submit your assignment by 2 p.m.
Yes, before 2 p.m. Tuesday.
Before 2 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you.